What's up, Madridistas? Kian Sabani here. Hope you guys are enjoying the international break. And if you're anything like me and you don't love international football, at least, maybe not this part of international football, and you're more excited for the World Cups and the Euros, etc., then this might tide you over. Some club football discussion to to kind of ease the pain of the international break and the anxiety of just hoping everyone comes back intact and healthy from a grueling traveling schedule. By the way, if you guys want coverage of the Real Madrid players on international break, we are doing it in written form, but not podcast form. So go to managingmadrid.com. You'll find coverage on all the Real Madrid players on international break, whether it's Mbappe, Modric, Brahim, Fede Valverde, Vinny, etc. It's all over on managingmadrid.com, so keep it locked there. Today's clip is taken from our weekly mailbag, which goes up for members and members only, and members get access to the weekly mailbag plus a ton more over on patreon.com/managingmadrid. Leah and I spent about 50 minutes answering questions yesterday. And what was interesting about it was that it was a very Barcelona-heavy mailbag. A lot of the questions were about Barca. And I think it's partly because it's the international break. There's not really any current news to discuss. So it was a lot of big picture discussion on the season because you're going to have to probably go through Barca 3 times if you want to get to those 3 trophies. Obviously, that's not entirely accurate because you could go through Atleti, you could go through other teams. If Barca get knocked out of the Champions League before they get to the final, obviously Real Madrid may not get to the final. In either of those cases, it's possible. And also the league. So it was a lot of like, can Real Madrid beat Barcelona in these upcoming games that they have to face them more than once? And how does this shake out? So the full episode is about 50 minutes. This clip is about an 8-minute clip from the full discussion. The full episode is linked in the show notes. You can go to patreon.com/managingmadrid. If you do not have Patreon in your country, because some countries have that restriction, you can simply hit join on the YouTube memberships tab on our Managing Madrid YouTube channel. All right, enough blabbering. Thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the clip, and let's get to it. The next 3 questions we're going to tie into one question, and when I read them, you'll understand why. So
Okay.
our YouTube member, Femi Biemi, says, don't you think we need one statement win against Barca to get our confidence back against them? And it is high time that Vinicius needs to put individualism aside and make this attack work. Our YouTube member, Anchor Giotti Bordeloy, says, long way to go, but I have a feeling we might face Barca in all 3 competitions. And based on evidence this season, we are probably going to fold against them. If given a choice, would you face Barca in the Champions League final with a possibility that we'll never hear the end of it if they beat
Oh
us?
my God.
Or would you rather we go out in the quarters or semis against some other team? And our patron Frederick Rantakiro says, do Arsenal or PSG have a greater chance of beating Barca in the Champions League final than we have?
That's a hard question because, okay, what was the first question?
They're all basically the same question, kind of with variations. The first question is, do we need a statement win against Barca to get our
Ah,
confidence back?
yes, and I think that's where this Clasico will come in, in hand. But the Copa del Rey final, I think, is before. Yeah, it is. It's before the Clasico, I
Before
will
the
say.
league?
Yeah. Either way, if we lose to Barca in Copa del Rey, I think that, whatever. They have more Copa del Rey titles. That's their competition. We know that. We know that as Madrid fans. We know that as what it's for me. That's if we're to lose against them in one of those 3 Clásicos, that's the one I prefer to lose
I
to.
think we've beaten them in the last 2 Copa del Rey finals we've played them in, right? The Cristiano header and
True.
the
Yeah.
Bale
Yeah. And they might not
Bartra.
get past Atletico Madrid. Like Atletico Madrid now are facing up against them again after
Yeah.
blowing a 2-0 lead. So I think that perhaps we have it's hard to say because Atletico Madrid in finals too are either way, that's a tough matchup. If I was to choose one to lose though to them, it would be that. Um I think that yes, if we were to win
Okay,
against
so
them,
I'm going to disagree with you on there.
yeah,
I mean, having to pick one of those to lose is always going to be tricky, and I don't know if there's a right answer. I mean, the only right answer would be you don't want to lose the Champions League final against them. But
definitely not.
the Copa del Rey one will lead to a trophy, and La Liga you may or may not win. But I think it would be, if you're going to play them in the Champions League final, to have already beaten them in a final this season, I think would
That's
be
true.
a big boost. To be
Statement,
like in
yeah.
a one-off game, like, and in our tournament,
True.
I think it would be a good psychological boost.
That's a good point. But absolutely I would not want to lose in a Champions League final. I think given when you look at it from like in the grand scheme of things, to get to a Champions League final in this new weird Champions League format where like we barely made it out of groups, and then we did well in playoffs to then make it into the round of 16. Um, and also given like the injuries and the lack of squad depth and blah 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 blah. Yes, Champions League final is like really good, but when's the last time we've lost a Champions League final? You know what I mean? So like, and then to lose a Champions League final against Barca, I just feel like that it's true. We'll never hear the end of it, and also like it's just it would suck to get that far and not win. Um,
This is a tough one because there's a lot of emotion involved, and I think
uh-huh.
the logical the logical answer to this is you want to get to the final even if you know you lose against them, because you want to get as far as you can, and the farther you get, the more prize money you get.
Yeah.
Um, the emotional answer is this is the greatest margin of risk to reward ratio I can think
Uh-huh.
of in the history of humanity. Like,
Uh-huh.
is there anything like the high? It's the highest of highs and lowest of lows, depending on where you end up on the scoreline on this in this
Yeah.
game. And I get it. Like, it's not a general point, by the way. Like, I wouldn't say I would avoid Barca in a Champions League final every year, but this year I think they're better than us.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if Real Madrid prove me wrong and beat Barca in the Champions League final, I'll be the first person to clip this and be like, and make fun of myself for being wrong. I'd be over the moon happy. But I just, based on the last two games, and also not really, it's less about those two games, although those two games are a big part of it. It's also the way we've looked this season, haven't looked good at all in
Mhm.
any game apart from City twice,
Yeah.
and Barca have looked great in multiple games. And so it's all of that, and so all the Barca fans are rooting for this, right? Because they can smell the blood and they can sense that if we meet them in the final, they're going to win it pretty easily.
Yeah.
But because of that, also knowing all that, if you go in and win it, the amount of shit we can talk is endless. The funny
Yeah,
thing is, I
literally.
don't even know how much shit we would talk. We would just be like, "Oh yeah, we won another Champions
Another
League
one.
final." Yeah. Um.
16. Cool.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Okay. Two things. For the last question, I think PSG beat them. I don't know about Arsenal. I think Barca would probably, if Rafinha's fit, if like Lamine Yamal is like on his game, even if he doesn't score, like he creates a lot for them. I think they like wipe the floor with Arsenal. I don't think they wipe the floor with PSG. I think PSG win, and I think Dembele scores like disgusting goals and celebrates like on their heads at their stadium, which would be cinema. I also think that they think it's a really easy route to the final, for them, and I don't think that. I think that Dortmund will probably be a lot harder than they're anticipating. And then beyond that, Bayern or Inter, I also think will not be. I know they beat Bayern already, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Inter
So
even more so.
these are interesting points. So, by the way, Santos in the chat says lowest of lows. Diego would claim a moral victory if Barca loses to Madrid 1-0 in a nail biter and point you to the XG. Just to clear up, that's not our lowest of lows. That would be Diego's lowest of lows to claim a moral victory. That's on him to embarrass himself. So that's his lowest of lows. Um, I agree with you about the bracket.
Mhm.
I think part of the reason it was perceived that our side is more difficult is partly because we had to go through Atletico first, and Arsenal
Yeah,
obviously having a very good season. But Bayern are looking better, I would
agreed.
say.
Mhm.
And Inter, despite a down year, they've conceded only 2 goals in the Champions League this season.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think where Barca will struggle the most, it will be against tactically disciplined teams who can attack in transition and are just competent and intelligent and talented. And Inter have all of those things.